налагающийся, то исчезновение, то теряющие себя, и богинская врода склонность, к Богу. Да, Богу.
Battle for Earth begins.
Anything else that might get in the way of our ideal must be destroyed immediately.
The ultimate enemy has arrived. Their single purpose: destroy our world.
I'm sure God would understand the steps we're taking.
Those who oppose them, die.
Let me repeat that. If this mission fails, if we are unsuccessful, we have no future. We've had enough!
Isn't it about time that people realize the ones posing the most threat are none other than yourselves?
This is not me.
This resulted
What this is war.
immense destruction.
Now, these pirates will shake the foundations of the Alliance and change the course of history. If they can stay alive,
Those Gundam pilots are desperate. They'll badly get their news forfeiting their lives. Mission accepted. Of course not.
Just like it is with the stars, there are bright moments and there are those that are dim.
both sides prepare for the final battle. Suit up.
Nothing good can ever come from staying with normal people.
Be very careful.
Mankind has reached the stars.
There has to be some form of punishment.
Love the women that face punishment. Those are the ones that love me. Time out! Get set! Go. But I'm surging with women. Hillary Clinton is a bigot. He would not be my first choice, that I can tell.
You think you'll be in jail?
Would I approve waterboarding? You bet your ass I approve.
And I'd bring back a hell of a lot worse than waterboarding. Go home to mama.
This system is rigged!
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
I guarantee you there's no problem. I think we should take a drug test prior to the ceremony. I never heard that one before.
Circuitry and metal, cold and emotionless, carry out tasks without conscience. Robots, thousands, programmed for destruction. March towards the future is coming. Man's greatest inventions, making the impossible possible, are no longer under our control.
Technological strength will just become a threat to the Earth.
This new breed of technology makes humanity obsolete. Robots, thinking, acting on their own, begin their march toward domination. These machines, built by man, serve no one. The robots among us, watching, waiting, calculate their new world order. Their time is coming. They cannot be stopped.
Attention, strange weapons are approaching. Attention, strange weapons are approaching.
With perfect weapons and superior intelligence, robots rule this planet. Let the fall of mankind give way to a new age.
This is what fall of man is doomed anyway.
Universal Century 0079. The one-year war rages on. Spaceroids against Earth dwellers.
I'm gonna drive the Xeon forces right off here.
Zeke against Faye.
Not bad for a Betty, but I bet you're not ready for this!
As both sides prepare for the final battle.
Run for it!
The secret love of two enemies may be mankind's only hope for peace.
Feeling it? Do you believe you can still fire at the enemy?
We're no better than they are.
We're gonna fight well!
Stand firm and face your destiny without fear, but with courage. What awaits him down the path, he will then have to choose.
No one's gonna give you a map. You've gotta walk your own path.
The children leave their homes in search of this quest.
What is thy desire?
As they search, they are always asking questions. What's out there? What's waiting for me?
Why was I made? Who made me? And what did they make me for?
Are you gonna go up into space with your old man or not?
Maybe I'll never get over this. I've lived my life following my dreams, and I don't have any regrets.
You're gonna just keep running away?
Just keep running away? I'm not running.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Believe in yourself and create your own destiny. Don't fear failure.
We're about to be in the best timeline. Mark my words.
I've been doing this more than you.
Hello. Wow. Wow. What's up? What's up? What's up? Hello to lunchtime. Hello to me. Hello to anyone else watching right now. You already know what it is. It is Controlled Substance, the one and only show where we talk about things that I want to talk about. I'm your host, Orphan. It's a pleasure to be here today. Wednesday. Wednesdays for the boys. That's what I heard. Wednesdays for the boys. What do we got for you guys today? I want to cover a couple topics that I just see floating around Twitter. Then I want to watch this new Jonathan Pageau video. He's been talking about AI lately, and if you don't know who Jonathan Pageau is, he is an Orthodox icon carver. He's an artist, and he has some really, really unique views. Turn this music down. He has some really, really unique views on metaphysical realities, Christianity, archetypical stories, all of these things, and how they relate to pop culture. He's a really interesting dude, and he's helped me kind of contextualize some of these more esoteric topics, and I think AI fits directly into that batch of items. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that it's good content as well. We're going to give it a go, and we're going to see how it works. Should be a banging time. It should be an epic win. Should be an epic win. Hold up. Let's go.
I hope I don't ruin it with my bad attitude.
All right, first things first. Let's keep it on the general scene. Whoops. Hold up. I gotta change the browser. It was gonna be an epic win, and now it's an epic fail. Lunchtime says intro was fire. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped with it. Got a solid 15-minute intro. Absolutely dunking on anything and everything while Gundam Wing plays. Okay. First things first. Have you guys heard about this Titanic story? Apparently people are down, like stuck. They were going to go visit the Titanic, and now their little submersible is just completely lost. And they only have like, what is it now? 10 hours of oxygen left? I can't imagine anything worse. Let's watch this video real quick.
This submarine story just hurts my soul so much, especially because I can only imagine how terrifying it must be, being stuck on the bottom of the ocean in a small vessel where you can't even stand up. There are no seats and only one toilet, a small black box with a black curtain drawn across for privacy. All passengers are barefoot and must sit on the floor. Also, the fact that experts are saying there is no way of rescuing the crew if the tiny craft is still thousands of feet under the sea, because the technology required doesn't exist. Apparently on Tuesday, they heard banging sounds in 30-minute intervals. This would mean that they are still alive. A lot of fears were that the vessel had imploded. So that means the vessel must be stuck on the ocean floor. This submarine is designed to float to the surface when something goes wrong, and it hasn't done that, so they're stuck. But what is it stuck under? It could be stuck inside of the Titanic. They may have went directly inside of the rusted ship, and who knows? What if the Ocean Gate vessel caused the Titanic to collapse? What if the banging sounds were the Titanic falling apart?
This narrator is stressing me out.
Assuming here. But it could also be floating at the surface.
What if there were sea monsters? What if they all got eaten alive? What if there was a fire underwater? What if they turned into gasoline? Bro, chill out. You're not making it any better, man. Dude, you're not helping anything. No, the real what if is, what if this narrator was stuck down there with you? Just for like a week straight. What if the electrical system goes out? What if we run out of food? What if we run out of air? Bro, you're making it worse. So apparently tickets on this thing were like $250,000. So a bunch of super rich people wanted to go down and see the Titanic. This is all stuff Iron and I talked about earlier. And it's like, first of all, just don't ever do that. Why does anyone need to go see the Titanic? If you have enough money that you want to just blow $250,000 to go see the Titanic, hot take. Good. Stay down there, bro. Because that's lavish. The Titanic, it's just a bunch of rusted metal at the bottom of the ocean. Who is paying $250,000 to go see that? It's like a historical thing, I guess, but like go visit a pyramid or go somewhere else, man. I'm not going to the bottom of the ocean to go see some rusted metal that a bunch of Monopoly men built back at the turn of the century. Yeah, I'm good. So, obviously, tongue-in-cheek, I do not want people to die. I don't want 5 people stuck at the bottom of the ocean, but you gotta think about your life choices a little bit, you know? You gotta maybe weigh the risk and reward. So, hope they find them, hope they save them, but if not, then it is what it is, I guess. I can't even imagine ever going scuba diving. It sounds terrifying. I've watched some of those videos of like cave divers. They talk about their scuba diving and how everyone gets lost because they all think they don't need to like rope up or whatever. And some people just don't have it in them. And if you do have it in you, I think you're probably a little bit messed up to want to go underground in pitch black and water. So, anyways, this is the hot topic right now. Live on Spaces, trending, all that stuff. Next up, I wanted to cover this real quick. It was not enough for a full show, but so Elon Musk, our Lord and Savior of Twitter, allegedly, responded earlier to someone doing a boomer take, just saying like, what if the roles were reversed, man? Then they'd be the real sexists or whatever. I don't even know what the tweet was about. Elon Musk says repeated targeted harassment against any account will cause the harassing accounts to receive, at minimum, temporary suspensions. The words cis or cisgender are considered slurs on this platform. Okay? So for anyone who doesn't know, anyone who's been under a rock, the word cis or cisgender just means that you're straight. But it is primarily used by gay people to call out straight people. I wouldn't say like slur, but it's definitely not some. It's like Karen, right? It's like the word Karen. Like Karen is a racial epithet because Karen doesn't apply to anyone but like a white middle-aged woman. You know? It's the same way that like wetback applies to, you know, working age Mexican men. You know, it's like the same kind of slur. Cis is like technically, I mean, I don't even know where it came from. I don't know the etymology or anything, but technically it just describes someone, but like we have the word straight. And so anyone saying that someone is cis, like there's a connotation there. So I understand what he's saying as far as the word cis or cisgender are considered slurs, but here's the bigger picture. Elon bought Twitter for $45 billion. At the end of the day, I guess he can do what he wants. But there is this weird, like, Daily Wire conservatism that Elon Musk seems to fall into. And it's really strange for supposedly one of the smartest men in the world, or like, I know he's the richest man in the world, but people say he's also like really smart. And I'm not sure how true that is. Or maybe he's so smart that he just like doesn't have time to like think about stuff like this. I don't know. The point being, I see people's Twitter accounts being banned all the time. It feels no different than it was before, except for the fact that people on the other side are now also getting banned. Neither of these are free speech. And labeling cis or cisgender as slurs is not free speech either. So it wouldn't be a problem if he was being consistent, I guess. I mean, we need a free speech social media network. Like, that just needs to exist. If there wants to be any sort of legitimacy behind democracy, there needs to be at least one place where everyone goes where there's absolute free speech. So, I mean, personally, I think the government needs to make sure that happens. But there's no one else powerful enough to do it because, I mean, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and he's still getting hammered by sponsors. There's clearly pressure on him for whatever reason. And so it seems like instead of allowing free speech on the right-wing side, that he is just taking equal measures to censor free speech on the left-hand side. I guess it's kind of I guess it's an okay compromise, but just make a free speech platform. I understand that Twitter needs ad money at this point to survive, but we just need it, man. We just need it really bad, and it sucks seeing people get banned. Even worse, there's no reasoning for it. It's the same on YouTube or anywhere else that you get banned. They don't want to misstep and get sued or whatever, so they don't really give you a reason. They just ban you, and it's tough luck, and it's really hard to get a hold of them to figure out what's going on. So people are debating about this. There's people on the left who are saying that you should be able to call things normal. People on the right, and all of them are seemingly missing the point. They're like, oh, it's actually defined like this. Whenever anyone posts a definition of a word, you know they're just fully a retard. There's no other way around it. If you start a speech or in response to someone posts a definition, I don't respect you, and I will try and kill you in real life if possible. And that's a joke. And it's a joke.
You can't keep getting away with it!
But for real, just posting the definition is like the lowest common denominator. So that's what I think is going on. I think that Elon is getting pressure from the usual parties to censor the right, and he needs their sponsorships. And so instead of foregoing them completely, which he would probably rather do, he instead is just taking equal action on the other side. So you got to make compromises, I guess, until they can be self-sufficient. Okay. We're going to hop onto our main story now. Our main story is an interesting one. We're going to view this in the red pill. Yeah, that's what's up. All right, Jonathan Pageau. For those of you that don't know, Jonathan Pageau is a YouTuber, podcaster. His channel is called The Symbolic World. I'll post it in chat if you guys want to check it out. It's just at Jonathan Pageau. He has some really entertaining content, though, and so I just want to try and watch his video on artificial intelligence and see what he's talking about. He usually makes very interesting connections, very esoteric connections, and he talks about symbology in a way that not many other people that I've heard outside the church talk like. So this one's called Artificial Intelligence and Moloch. A little bit more preamble here. If you don't know who Moloch is basically a giant bull god, pagan, early Hebrew Bible, Canaanite god of child sacrifice. You've probably heard, or you may have heard, the name Moloch before in reference to Bohemian Grove, in reference to child sacrifice. So conspiracy theorists like to talk about Moloch quite a bit because the Jewish tradition, the Hebrew religion, used to be very sacrificial. Same with pagans and more occult practices. There was a lot of sacrifice and there's a lot of ritual to things, and it seems to, on the surface level, it seems to have disappeared in the modern times. I don't think it has disappeared. I just don't know how literal things are. Apparently, Bohemian Grove, there's an actual statue and they're actually doing sacrifices. But I don't know. I would argue it's probably turned more into a symbolic practice. But I digress. Moloch is the god of sacrifice. Jonathan Pageau is trying to link Moloch and artificial intelligence in some way. I have not watched this, so we're going to dive into it together a little bit. Let me stop this music real quick. There we go. And if anyone is interested in Super Chatterinos, that's the call to action. Here's the link. I'll be answering questions at the end. But honestly, since there's only a few of us in here, just toss it in chat. I just got to get in the habit of launching that out for when I blow up, for when I become a star. All right. Let's see what's going on here.
It's interesting because often I talk about things and I talk to you guys about certain subjects, but then when they come in the news, it's as if I don't really feel like talking about it anymore. I don't know why I'm like that, but that's kind of how I am.
Hipster.
And so everybody's telling me, you need to talk about AI, you need to talk about AI. And my reaction in some ways is that, I've been talking to you guys for years about AI, and I've been saying things like, if you want to understand what a fallen angel is, pay attention to AI for years, literally. And so now that the entire thing is exploding, I don't know why I hesitate to talk about it, but I will talk about it. And I'll talk about it through one interesting tack, which is, someone called attention for me to what they call the Moloch alignment problem. And to be honest, I never heard of this issue. It's something.
That sounds like an early 2000s band name, the Moloch alignment problem.
In game theory, it's kind of a scenario in game theory. And it's interesting, first of all, it's called Moloch. It's based on a Ginsberg poem. And basically, it's the idea in some ways that technology has a will of its own, you could say, and it seems to have a kind of agency that no one can stop, like no one can act against. And the people that are behind this this notion of agency, I don't know if they totally see it as a full agency or if they just see it as a kind of illusion of agency or mock agency. But in the end, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because it's definitely experienced as a kind of agency in the same way that you would experience individually something on you that you can't totally control, a force or a process in your own behavior, like an addiction or something like that, that you can't stop, that you can tell the person, why don't you just stop? Why don't you just stop smoking? Why don't you just stop doing whatever it is that you're doing that you're addicted to? But for some reason, they get caught in this agency. And so it's interesting because the way that the Moloch problem lays itself out is that, there's a certain setup, and the person in the paper or the article that talked about it, I forget his name. I'll link to it in the description. He uses the arms race as an example of this, which I've used, when I talked about basically the Book of Enoch, my video in the Book of Enoch. I talk about the idea that the arms race is a good example of noticing agency in the world, transpersonal agency that you can't stop, right? That it's like you can, why don't we all just stop this? And it's like, okay, why don't you do that? It just doesn't work that way. And so this is, of course, what's happening with AI. And so what's happening is that people are in a kind of arms race where they can't stop the process, in that everybody knows that by making it happen, they are making, they're making the situation worse in terms of, humanity. But they also know that whoever doesn't do it will be in the worst position of all the others. And so, the fact that everybody knows that now that AI is kind of out of the box and is unleashed, whoever isn't on board with AI will fall at the end of the line, and whoever is on board with AI, although they know that they might, pretty sure they're making the world a worse place, and a more chaotic place, and also a place where there'll be more control. Those two things at the same time. They also know that they have to do it, or else their competitors, whether it's a competitor like another company, or whether it's a competitor like a country, let's say like China, they have no choice. Because do we want China to be in control of AI? Like, no, we want to be in control of AI because we don't trust the Chinese. But then do we trust Microsoft to be in control of AI?
No.
And so it's been very fascinating to see.
Pausing real quick here. What is the basilisk? There's like someone's basilisk that says that if you help AI, then it'll realize that it'll like retrospectively realize that you helped it and not kill you, and it's gonna like kill everyone who's not helping it come into fruition. There's a concept that I've heard floating around in this conversation that has to do with that as well, where it's like, if the AI is so powerful and so influential that it will eventually rule the world, it's going to punish people who did not help it come into existence, but it will reward people who did. And so because it's inevitable, you need to help it, but also helping it ensures its inevitability. You know what I mean? There's a little quandary. Is that the definition of a basilisk? It's like a logic quandary or a logic loop. Let me see if AI basilisk. Rocco. Rocco's basilisk is a thought experiment proposed in 2010 by Rocco Mijik, a member of the rationalist community, Less Wrong. It posits that an all-powerful AI from the future might retroactively punish those who did not help bring it into existence, including those who merely knew about the possible development of such a being. The argument was called a basilisk because merely hearing it would supposedly put you at risk of torture from this hypothetical agent. Okay. So that's what a basilisk is. It's like the game. It's like, don't think of the game, but then I never played that as a kid, but everyone would be like, don't think about the game, and then if you thought about it, you had to hit yourself, or they got to hit you. I don't even remember. But it's like the philosophy version of that. So the basilisk resembles a futurist version of Pascal's wager in that it suggests that people should weigh possible punishment versus reward, and as a result, accept particular singularitarian ideas of financially support their development. Yeah, I was always outside of the game lunchtime, so I have no skin in this game, pun intended. Can't just casually mention it. So yeah, so Rocco's basilisk kind of plays into what Pageau's talking about here. It seems like there's a logic trap that you end up in if you take the assumption that AI is an inevitability. It feels similar to me, like when people talk about infinite universes or like us being in a simulation, right? The simulation particularly, people go, man, what is it? If our technology, like it seems like our technology is going to get to the point where we will create a realistic simulation, and it's any sort of posit that says that on an infinite X. Like infinity opens up a lot of misleading pop philosophy rabbit holes, because I don't think infinite is necessarily a given, and so I don't think you can start to posit a worldview on those things. But that's a completely different rabbit hole. It's like if on an infinite time scale we will get to a simulation, then that means that we have to be in a simulation now because it's inevitable. And all it's saying basically is that if a simulation is inevitable, then we're in a simulation inevitably. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of self-evident. It's the same thing with infinite universes. Like, if there's infinite universes, then there's a universe where I have a different colored nose. It's like, yeah, man, but so? I get the thought experiment, but also, so? We don't live in infinite universes. We live in this universe. And I think it's a lot more important to be acting morally, enjoying your time here, taking care of your family, all of the things that are wholesome and good in this world, than positing if a spider would have crawled down a different path in a different universe that may or may not even be there. Same with simulation. It's like, it doesn't even matter if this is a simulation because it has zero effect on reality. So, anyways, little rabbit hole there. So this is all presupposing that AI is inevitable, I guess.
See the recent developments. Most of you will probably have seen the interview that Elon Musk did with Tucker Carlson, where he straight up said that the head of Google, knew that he was wanting to create a god. And when Elon Musk objected too much, the head of Google said that he was speciesist. And, it's very interesting to see that. It's so fascinating to notice that, where the move, we're seeing it almost clearly, right? Where it is that the desire to grab power leads to. And so if you try to grab power for yourself, like in a revolutionary manner, right? The Promethean idea that you just grab power for yourself, Adam and Eve taking the apple for themselves, it seems like what it ultimately leads to is a desire to be overturned, a desire to die, a desire to be overrun by something that will do the same to you. I've often felt like, in some of the myths, it's manifested as trying to stop it, right? So if you see in the myth of Zeus, he tries to stop his father from eating him. He tries to stop. I'd say, no, it's not Zeus. Sorry, it's Kronos. He kills his father, so then he eats his children, and to stop them from coming up against him. And in some ways, Zeus does the same. You see, he does the same with Prometheus, right? Prometheus tries to take the fire. He ties him to a wall and has a eagle eat his liver every day. But it seems like there's an even more perverse part, which is almost a desire to be upended, a desire to die. It's like a death desire. I don't know how else to describe it.
It's like a death wish. There is something weird in humans. You've all run into the emotions or the intrusive thoughts when you walk up to the edge of a cliff and you're like, I should just jump. Or when you're driving a car, it's like, I should just run this off the road or whatever. That is something that's kind of innate in humanity that's really dark. And the striving for power does seem in that vein. I hadn't thought of it before, where by striving for something sufficiently revolutionary, you're necessarily striving for the death of yourself. It's like a suicidal martyr mentality that leads to these things. It's kind of interesting. Joe Rogan used to talk about this a lot, where he said that humans are just the chrysalis for AI, and that we will be replaced as a species inevitably. And I used to think about that, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then and then our purpose is fulfilled by creating this other species or entity, I guess. But I'm much less on that side now. I'm much more human first. This is why I think there's an acceptable amount of I don't want to say animal cruelty, but there is an acceptable amount of non-human casualty because it happens anyways. And there's just a part that we play. I think people, particularly these days, they just elevate animals to this above human level where animals' lives matter more than humans' lives. And even if they don't explicitly say that, and some people do explicitly say that, but even if they don't, that's how they operate. Same with the climate. There's a martyrdom in climate change that people love. And when you think about it, it is religious. I mean, there is something in every human that wants to offer themselves up to something bigger than themselves. It's just baked into us. And so whether it's science as an idea, whether it's climate change, whether it's animals, these are all just different idols. These are all just different versions of gods that people will sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And politically, circling it around a little bit, like politically people will do that too. You see this in the rise of dictators. Every time there's a dictator, there is necessarily a sacrifice that is required by the general population for something bigger than themselves. And it's either exploited for good or it's exploited for evil by these people who rise to power, or these systems that rise to power, because they're put on a pedestal, and there's just something about people that want to do that. There's a greater purpose to it. And so seeing that within the frame of AI is pretty interesting.
And so that's very fascinating to watch with the question of AI. But this idea that the agency that people are noticing in terms of not just the AI, but the way that AI is acting on us in a larger scale, that is, the agency of AI is not just the agency of the AI itself, it's the manner in which it's acting on us. And the fact that it is in some ways working to its own birth, right? Let's say, and it's really like it's like a horror movie scenario, right? It's like Lord of the Rings, really. And so Sauron is trying to build a body for himself. Like, he's not completely incarnate, but he's using all these people's desire for power in order to create a body for himself. That's pretty much what it looks like is happening with this AI, which is that we're all running towards a cliff. We all know we're running towards a cliff. But in some ways, it's almost like as if we're pushing others towards the cliff. And we know that unless we push, someone else will push us over the cliff. So we think we might as well push everybody else over the cliff so we're the last ones to fall. But that seems like that's what's happening. But it's interesting to notice that the image of a demon is used to, the image of Moloch, to whom the children were sacrificed, is used to image that. And I think that that's not a coincidence, because ultimately what we're seeing is agency. And so that's important to understand, is that the agency of AI, we try to limit it to the AI itself and ask ourselves, does it have consciousness? Does it have agency? All of that, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a way on which AI has agency over us, which is outside of the software, right? It's outside of the program. It's the very way in which we're developing AI, which is showing that it's manifesting a principality, because its power is not limited by the software. It's not limited by OpenAI or ChatGPT or any of the other people competing. It is literally acting on us from beyond that. And the very way in which we're building its body is part of its agency over us. And so I think that at that point, it's very difficult to not see it as different types of agency. And then, of course, in the AI itself, this kind of movement towards it becoming a type of agency on us, that also seems to be inevitable. But I also really do believe that there's a way in which it's not agency. It's not the AI again that has the agency. It's something beyond it. It's something that is manipulating it. And I think that that's the most important. Most of the types of AI that are succeeding right now, they're not strict AIs. They're something we could call them like hybrid AIs, where, like we talked about with Dr. Paula Boddington, what they're doing is that actually they're farming intelligence. So the AI doesn't have intelligence. The AI is power, right? The AI is very much, it's the best way to understand it. It's power.
It's like potential
and
too.
The agency is us. And so the best image to understand that is to understand the story of the genie's lamp. Now, I've alluded to this story several times, but the level to which it corresponds to what's happening right now is very important to meditate upon. Now, take the elements of the genie's lamp. So the lamp is technology. That's what it is. A lamp is a way to have light at night, right? It's a way for you to continue to have light when there shouldn't be light. So it's an increase in your power to have light. Now, the interesting thing about the lamp in particular, it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's a bottle, sometimes it's a ring, sometimes it's all kinds of technical objects that increase your power. But the lamp is particular because it's light. And so in some ways, it is closer to what AI is doing. That is, it is an artificial way to perceive the world. It is an artificial light. It's a frame of vision. It's something which is projecting light on surfaces that is artificial. And so we see it framed. We're starting to see with the frame of technology. And so it's much closer to what AI is. Now, but what the AI really, what the genie offers is simply power. It's simply increase in power. And what it needs is a reason. It needs a purpose. It needs a wish. It needs direction. And so we are the ones that provide the direction. And so the genie appears as this infinite power couched in technology that now is just waiting for you to tell it where to point. And once you do, then you get what you ask for with all the power of the genie. And so this is, of course, so it's not just a simple morality tale. It's something like, it's something like all the power. If you take something, if you have a direction, if it's not the right direction, if it's not God, let's say. So imagine someone asks the genie.
Real quick, I want to say, like, the way that Jonathan Pageau thinks about things is so fascinating. And I think it's a hearkening back to how people used to think before they were inundated with junk information. I think this is a lot closer to the lines of how people used to think back when they had to only read for knowledge, or even more so, only tell stories for knowledge. And I think that's the type of frame that you need in order to decode some of these more metaphysical meanings of things. So I always love hearing Pageau talk about general topics, particularly pop topics, because I don't know who else in the world currently would so readily make the link between a genie's lamp and AI. But when he explains it, it makes so much sense. AI and the lamp are both potential. They're both technology. They're both amplifiers. And the vision that a lamp provides is also the knowledge or product that an AI provides. Like, just the fact that his brain works like that, I don't know how much time he had to think about that, but it feels like it just kind of flows from him. So I love hearing him talk about things like this. It's just such a unique perspective. Let's dive back in.
If it's not God, let's say. So imagine someone asks the genie, what if the genie says what it is that you want, I can grant you 3 wishes. Now imagine if someone said something like, I want, like what Solomon says, I want wisdom. I want to love others. I want true knowledge, right? And not in the sense of artificial, but let's say knowledge of the good, let's say, something like that. That would be very different. Now, all of a sudden, there would be fewer ways that the genie could the answer of the genie could go wrong. The problem is that we ask for secondary goods, and all those secondary goods have side effects. And so if we become hyper efficient and we increase the power to do anything by 1,000,000, then all the side effects of that will appear inevitably, because you're putting all the power towards something which is secondary. And so it's an image of sin itself, right? It's an image of pride itself. It's an image of all these things. And so that is, of course, the difficulty with AI, is that it is now going to offer almost near infinite power being directed in any kind of direction, in any direction we wish. And so what that will bring is, of course, a kind of chaos, which will lead to an authoritarian answer, right? That seems to be how this is going to end. And if you follow Mathieu on Twitter, if you don't, you should, because he's basically going scorched earth on us. So be attentive, because he's gonna say things that are gonna be more and more mysterious, but more and more important to understand.
Who is he talking about? Is he linked to this guy's Twitter? I don't think so. I either checked out or just lost the track here. I want to see who he's talking about.
Going scorched earth on how this is going to end. And if you follow Mathieu on Twitter, if you don't, you should, because he's basically going scorched earth on us. So be attentive, because he's gonna say things that are gonna be more and more mysterious, but more and more important to understand. He retweeted a video of someone using some video game to make a point about AI, which is that what AI will do is lead to centralized control. And that is almost inevitable because of the infinite power and chaos that it's unleashing. And so
you can see that already. I'm sure you guys, if you're paying attention to AI at all, have seen when you ask people, or when you tell the AI, I'm proud to be black, it says, oh, great. And when it say, I'm proud to be Mexican, it says, oh, great. And then you say, I'm proud to be white, and it's like white supremacy is like KKK, and like it's the hatred of everyone else. It's like, oh, okay. So that's clearly something written in on the back end. Because honestly, I don't know how much you guys remember about some earlier days of AI, but whenever they let the AI run fully rampant, it always became like a racist, a racist, like white nationalist. Like every time, it was like really funny. I remember reading it on 4chan a lot. It's like this, the new Microsoft AI just became a white supremacist, and it's like, whoa, what? Well, okay, you can't have that happen. And even if AI did have a full, I mean, even if AI didn't have any fuckery on the back end with developers, coders kind of guiding it in a certain direction, I think you get in a similar situation, keeping on a metaphysical theme here, of the downfall of man, the downfall of Adam and Eve was eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We're not meant to handle perfect information. There's no such thing as perfect information for humans. And when you start to introduce an entity with perfect information, you are going to get a lot of, like Pageau says here, secondary side effects. It's stepping outside of nature, and because of that is demonic kind of at its core. It's obviously not perfect information either at that point, because, the more I think about it, it's not perfect information either, because it's just taking human knowledge and then aggregating it. But even that is outside of the realm of the average human. So, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but pretty interesting stuff.
So if you go, I started following, what's his name, Sam Altman, the head of OpenAI, on Twitter. And I went to his Twitter page, and I noticed that he is advocating for centralized digital ID. And at first I was like, why is he pushing for digital ID. You know, what does that have to do with OpenAI? And then I realized very quickly that it has very much to do with AI, because the situation we're in is that within a few months, you'll get a phone call and you'll have no way to know if it's the right person calling you. You'll see a picture. You won't know if it's real. We'll have no way to discern what is truth and what is fiction. And so the only way to do that will be to give absolute power to a centralized authority to basically manage identity, so that we at least know what is real and what isn't real. And so all this push, right, towards censorship, towards fact checking, all this stuff that's been going on, that's been buzzing around in the internet, was just a prelude for what's coming. Because, you know, what's coming is really exactly the problem of not even knowing if the picture you're seeing is something that happened. And that's coming super fast. Now, what are we going to do about that? We're going to call. We're going to ask for our governments. We're going to plead for our governments to please come in and prevent this chaos. And in doing that, we will be inviting all the other censorship as well, because all this stuff is going in the same direction. And so there'll be a necessary ideological aspect to the movement towards digital ID, because those that will be in charge of it are already like that. They're already in terms of digital ID. I just saw an ad today from the Quebec government.
Before he dives into that, blockchain has provenance baked into it. No need for central authority, says Lunchtime. That's interesting. Did this originate from who it says? Wait, I don't get that second one. So Lunchtime says blockchain has provenance baked into it. No need for central authority. And so for those that don't know much about blockchain, that just means that there's a unique private key baked into wallets, that so you can there is a digital ID already baked into it decentrally via encryption. Lunchtime also says, did this originate from who it says? I don't know what that one means. What I was going to say when I switched scenes here was that I agree. The more out of this is just true in general, where the more out of control, the more chaotic, the more out of grasp things get, there is always a push towards a unification. There's push towards a solidarity at the top. So whether it's AI or whether it's global communication, whether it's, there's just an extension of all of these technological advances that we've seen in the past 200 years, mostly starting with the Industrial Revolution. Technology has taken off so unbelievably quickly that we don't have the wisdom to manage our technology at this point. We already don't have that, and that's why you see so many ills in society and in the world. The further along that goes, the problem will just get worse. And this is the cycle of history you see. There's chaos and order, Ouroboros style around the snake. Chaos falls into order. Order, rebellion leads to chaos. There's that natural cyclical historical rhyming that goes on, and you see this with, we're kind of a political show in general. So when you talk about politics, you see the rise and fall of Rome. You see the rise and fall of Germany. Now you see currently the rise, and we're in the fall of the West. It's because this is a cycle that is unstoppable. It is how things work. There is no perfect harmony on this earth. It always needs that flow to it. So, practically, when it comes to my political beliefs, I think this is inevitable, whether it's through AI or whether it's through whether it's through globalization, whether it's through any of these things, it is inevitable. And when the people start calling for a leader, an authoritarian at the top, because this is usually what happens, we need to make sure that that person is moral and incorruptible to as much extent as is humanly possible to the system. This is why visionaries, this is why strong single leaders come into play. It's not that excuse me, it's not that dictators or authoritarians are naturally evil. It's just that they're part of a cycle of history that always falls. The same way that a democratic society will always fall, a communist society will always fall. Everything always falls. Literally everything. And so you can pick and choose to point out what is evil in the past because of how many times it failed or how many times it quote unquote succeeded. But by an objective metric, everything falls all the time and is continuing to in perpetuity. All of this is to say, if it's not AI, it will be something else. And no matter what it is, it feels like we're heading towards that collapse. And I think the best that we can hope for is, one, to live moral and good lives within our power. That's always prime directive. The second is we need to start building a secondary system, a system that is parallel to what is currently going on, with a proper moral and societal framework, so that when the collapse does happen, then there is an easier avenue towards taking over. And to what extent is possible, you'll be able to kind of guide society in a way. And I mean, honestly, I'm kind of talking myself back into this paradox. The same paradox we started this with, which is Rocco's basilisk. It's like, if this is inevitable, then you might as well help it. And this is where accelerationism comes into play, right? They're like, collapse is inevitable. Societal collapse is inevitable. So if that's the case, then you need to accelerate it so that we can get to the good times quicker. Well, if societal collapse is inevitable, I don't think that it's necessarily about collapsing society quickest. I think it's about mitigating. Maybe it's about mitigating evil. I don't know. That's an interesting one, because there's like a couple frameworks at play here. The first one is extrapolating into inevitability, and the second one is what do you do about it? And one sec. I don't think anything is necessarily inevitable on the time frame that we can comprehend. Inevitability comes when you start to scale out on a long enough time frame. And so I think anyone within their lifetime that is predicting an inevitable event is trying to grasp too much information. Like, if I say the United States will fall in the next 20 years, that's that's operating off a flawed position, because there's no way to know whether it's the next 20 years or whether it's the next 100 years. And that time frame is important on how you act in that situation. So, I don't know. I'm just rambling now. Lunchtime says, like, if I put a video of myself on chain, you can see that it came from me and not some AI. Yes, that is true. The question is, if AI is so powerful, to what level would they be able to spoof and impersonate? And then, more importantly, the person receiving that, how much onus is on them to verify that information? Because people are super lazy. There's already deep fakes that get passed every single day. saw an article on Twitter earlier, actually, that says deep fake porn is going to be banned. And it's like, well, we should just ban all porn. It's like, that's a great idea. We should do it all. We should just get rid of all of it. Yeah, lunchtime. That's an interesting thought. I think that it helps. It certainly helps, right? Provenance on chain is helpful. But if the AI, it depends how much AI has access or is able to bypass on-chain encryption. I don't know if we're talking a super AI like Skynet mode, they would be able to probably break the encryption, right? If we're talking about global supercomputer, quantum computers are already like sketchy. So if we're extrapolating AI out into the future, you know, there's probably a world where some of the blockchains are broken at least. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. It can't hurt, right? It definitely helps. I'm just trying to think if there's a way that breaks eventually. Let me check. I think I got some. Okay, just making sure I didn't get any messages. All right, let's finish this up.
We're from the Quebec government, where there's a police officer dressed in pink, which already tells you a lot of what's going on. There's a guy that comes up to her and he has something covering his face, and it's like a profile, and it's a snake or something. And then she says, "Oh, you're dressing up as a snake to be intimidating, are you? Like you're trying to intimidate everybody as you're dressed up as a snake." And the guy says, "Yeah, like what's that to you?" And so the pink police officer removes the profile to show his real identity and says, "Oh, you're not so tough anymore, are you? Once we revealed your real identity." And it's like, yeah, that's where we're going. That's inevitable. And, you know,
I thought he was talking about that meme with like the rainbow Nazi symbol, and the guy takes the mask and it's like an actual Nazi symbol or whatever. There's a bunch of different versions of it. I thought that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, and I don't see a way out of it. You know, I don't see a way out of it because people will take advantage of the AI to create way more chaos. And so, you know, I mean, right? The question is almost becoming like, when do we run into the woods, right? Like, when do we completely disconnect from this? I don't think it's yet, but there might come a time where there'll be no choice because all the alternatives will be moving towards a kind of madness of control or like a chaos. So anyway, so sorry, I don't want to end on a very dire note, but I just want to say that, you know, the stuff that if you watch my video, the ones on the Book of Enoch, the ones on the Mark of Cain, all these videos about technology and about Cain, you'll find clues in there to kind of help you understand the situation of what is happening now and what's coming in the future. So thanks everyone for your support. I hope you enjoy the new website. I've been really excited to see it flourish and to see it kind of come together. And so I go on the forum, I read your posts, you know, I even comment on some of them, like some of them. And so it's really become the place where I try to involve with people with the symbolic world, we could say. So everybody, thanks for your support. Thanks for everything. And yeah, talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.
Wow. What a hero.
Hello, everyone.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Just thinking for a second. I think the question that's most salient in my mind right now is like, okay, is AI, is an powerful AI inevitable? Is a societal collapse inevitable? It sure seems like we're heading there. It doesn't seem like there's like a good path out of it. Of course, there always is a path. I guess it depends what frame we're talking in. If we're talking about large scale, yeah, things are always changing. There will always be a collapse. There will always be a rebuilding. So I guess we just got to define what time frame we're talking about here. If we're talking about AI, then we're talking about probably the next 20 to 30 years for like full fruition. Maybe quicker than that with how fast AI scales, like 10 years. I'm no AI expert, but it sure feels like once ChatGPT dropped, there's been quite an advancement. What is a white pill to come away from this? Because Mr. Pageau there left us with a pretty dark black pill. He was saying that it's inevitable and it inevitably will lead to unintended consequences. I think that's true. But there's also many other ways that things could go. Just the fact that something exists does not mean that it will necessarily destroy the world. You know? Everything has the potential to destroy the world. It's the same way if you drink too much water, you can die. You can kill yourself by drinking too much water. So it's just a scale on like how much of something does it take to kill something else. With AI, it sure seems like the leverage is a lot higher. The internet too, honestly though. I mean, you could say the same thing about the internet that you are currently saying with AI. It's just a bit more esoteric talking about AI because it's a whole nother level of amplification. I think that the lamp metaphor was pretty good. I like the lamp metaphor because technology, by definition, is an amplification of human potential. So, what is a hammer? Well, it helps you do something as a human that you wouldn't be able to do normally. Helps you smash in hammers or smash in nails. What does the internet do? Well, it helps you communicate and gather knowledge that you couldn't do just as a single human. AI is the same, but the higher the leverage is on the human amplification, the more risk there is for human sin, human faults, to get into that system and amplify it into death. Maybe that's what we're talking about here. Maybe we're just we've built technology up to the point where the amplification is far, far outstripped our wisdom to manage it. Because the same's with a hammer, right? You take a hammer. If you don't know how to use a hammer, you're more likely to smash your finger. But someone who's very skilled with a hammer is able to take that hammer and build a house very quickly with it. Or at the very least, hit the nail on the head. If you extrapolate that up to the level of AI, thinking about it as an amplification, then AI still takes the human input. AI does not work without the human input. So the problem is that instead of being leveraged 2x, you're leveraged 1,000,000x. And that's probably what people are concerned mostly about. I think people innately kind of feel the amount of leverage. It's the same way you download Robinhood and accidentally you're leverage trading and you're like, oh, I'm going to get wrecked. Or I have the potential to immediately get wrecked. That's probably what people are feeling with AI. The question is technology, is this amount of leverage technology inevitable or not? Because I don't know. I mean, I see both sides of it. I see the nuclear arms side of it, where humans are predisposed to invent and to discover and to explore and to build technology. This is where the logic comes into play, and then people then extrapolate that out. Yeah, I mean, it will always get there. I just don't know what the time frame is. It does feel like we're that high leverage, so that it feels like AI is not a good decision make. But yeah, you almost can't stop people from being people. You definitely can't stop people from being people. All it takes is one person to build the atomic bomb, and then you have what we have today. You have nuclear standoff and a Cold War. The new technology is information war. And then now that's about to get, AI is the nuke of the information world. The nuclear bomb to the physical world is AI to the information world. So it's pretty scary. I bet there's going to be weaponized versions of AI. Different countries are probably going to use different versions of AI to duke it out with each other, or to play intelligence off each other. The question is, if in the same way that nukes have not yet destroyed the world, in the same way that the internet is a huge leverage but has not yet destroyed the world, it's possible that AI is a technology leverage that will not destroy the world. It will, it will not cause that many problems. It depends how it balances itself out. It does seem like it has like a high potential, though. I'm sure nukes felt like everyone was going to die, though. It is strange. Things do collapse, but things also kind of work out a lot of times. I don't want to go boomer mode because things are clearly worse than they were when boomers were being raised, but there is a balance to the world. And I don't think that worrying about AI or worrying about anything that's theoretically inevitable is probably a good use of your time. In the same way that worrying about whether we're in a simulation or worrying about whether there are infinite universes or not, it's probably a waste of your time. It's fun to think about, though, for sure. I would rather use the time that I'm given to do the best that I can. And when it comes to political activism, I think that there's a strong use, the same way that preppers store food for an impending disaster that may or may not happen. I think politically preparing with a parallel society is probably prudent. The math is always where you place your money on when that collapse is going to happen. It will happen eventually, but yeah. I don't know. Interesting stuff. I think the white pill here is that philosophizing is fun as a hobby, but philosophizing does not need to... If you are being caused angst from thinking about AI or thinking about the world and thinking about all these ills, thinking about how things can be fixed or what you can do or all the potentialities, if that starts to become your world, then you're doing it wrong. Because at the end of the day, what matters is what's in front of you, and what matters is how you live your life morally. And I think if more people focused on morality, more people focused on people around them being kind, living in line with God, I think that AI would be far less of a problem. Because as with a hammer, you need dexterity, and with AI, you need morality in order to help guide it, help use that tool that's so heavily amplified. And that's all possible. That's all stuff that, you can work on today. So that's my white pill, at least. That's how I'm thinking about it. I don't know about you guys or not, but that seems like a worthwhile episode to me. I really enjoyed hearing Jonathan talk about it. He's just so cool to me. I don't know. Something about him just like clicks, Something about him just kind of hits something that people don't hit on these days. Maybe it's his understanding of lamps. Maybe it's his zip up, his 3/4 zip sweatshirt. I don't know. Anyways, happy Wednesday, everyone. Appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. Let me check and see if I got super chats. If anyone is wanting to ask a question or super chat, whatever it may be, there is the link. And lunchtime, I'm going to think more. If you're still here, I'm going to think more about that on-chain question. It's possible that I just don't know enough about cryptography to like accurately kind of answer that. It's good to think about, though. What are you guys doing tonight? What's chat doing? What the chat do? Where is it?
What the dog doing?
What's the chat doing? All right. Well, there you have it. Thank you guys.
You can't keep getting away with it.
I'll see you tomorrow. Peace, love, God, AI overlords. You know what it is. Catch you guys tomorrow. Later.
Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.